Back at it again.
Mm-hmm.
I
It
don't
is the
even
new year,
remember. I don't
everybody.
remember the last time that we recorded, honestly.
Bitch,
To
last
be
week.
oh, I literally forgot. I
Remember we
was just
talked
closing
for
out my
literally like an
intestines.
hour and 45 minutes before we started recording? We
Oh,
did
we
one and we
just
were like, I'm done. So
okay. Well, you also had a migraine, so we were being respectful. Literally forgot we recorded last week entirely.
it was a
Should
long
probably.
sesh.
It was. We just talked for 45 minutes right now.
Mm-hmm. It's very
Life
easy to lose
updates.
track of time.
Oh my god! Immediately, especially when Alexa's trying to kill me.
Oh,
So
that was scary.
it was scary, y'all. Alexa and all of my computer bots are on the fritz. So if Siri starts talking or Alexa,
Here's the thing,
someone
it
come
wasn't
pick
even
me
like it
up.
was a quiet, like Alexa's making a statement. It was like blaring music. And I was like, what is
Well, that's how
happening?
that's how loud I listen to music on volume 8
Oh
because
my
I was
God.
cooking and making dinner for Jeff, so it could be ready when he got home. But it's gonna be cold. It's gonna be ice cold.
Well, because when we got on 45 minutes ago, he said, I'll see you in 20 minutes. So
True. Oop. Wonder if I should send a text like, "Yeah, you okay, little buddy?" Anyways, today is PS. What are we talking about, Steph? What are we talking about?
So we're trying to figure out how to word what we wanted to say, right? Like what we're going to title this episode, how we were going to structure it. We're just going to go for it.
Mm-hmm.
So in the world, there are many types of providers under the umbrella of, healthcare, whether it's mental health, medical, all the things. We wanted to provide some information on who does what and how to choose a provider wisely.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So, for example, if you are wanting to get on psychotropic meds for your mental health, the ideal situation you would like to put yourself in is to contact a mental health provider, right? So they are psychiatrists. There are APNPs, which are advanced practice nurse practitioners. And your best bet is to find one that has a mental health, specialty, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's what they
Mm-hmm.
do. That's what they go to school for. Now, I will preface that by also saying there are PCPs, so primary care physicians or regular general practitioners that will provide you medication because they have the ability to. This isn't knocking anybody who does that. I did that for all the time that I was medicated. However, the caveat to that is I'm a therapist, so I knew what was going on with me, right? This isn't to judge anybody who goes in and tells their doctor, like, I'm struggling with XYZ. However, some PCPs will not prescribe psychotropic meds because that is not their specialty. So they will say, you need to see a psychiatrist or an APNP. I'm not comfortable doing that. That's great. The reason you want to see a specialist is because that's what they studied.
Mm-hmm.
That's their jam, quote unquote, right? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
what they know. So they are going to know if this med isn't working, we're going to try this one without having to do extensive research and things like that, like maybe a regular PCP would have to do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have had a lot of people, a lot of my clients, I feel like, who have gone to their general practitioners, which I'm very happy that they were able to reach out and advocate for themselves to say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm struggling. I want to start something. It seems though that it gets to this point where it's been 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years that they're on this same med, and without having the knowledge of what these meds might do to you or understanding these meds just in general, like maybe we would have like this general understanding of like, okay, I know that this is kind of in the realm that I'm looking for. It feels like then if something is going wrong with the med, there's not much, it doesn't feel like there's much wiggle room. It doesn't feel like there can be many more meds tried because again a general family doctor that you may be going to see, like their specialty is going to be treating families, it's going to be treating general ailments, aches, pains,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, but then they refer out to other specialists the same way. If you go see your general practitioner and you say, God, my foot's really hurting, you'd get a referral for a podiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my stomach is really acting up, you'd get a referral for a GI specialist. Okay, I'm really having these heart problems, you would get a referral for a cardiac specialist. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the same thing as if something is going on with your mental health, you would get a referral for going to see a psychiatrist and talking to them about potentially changing different meds. I think that it is huge to know that that's what a psychiatrist went to school for, to learn all of these different meds and the different interactions and what they do. And this isn't to say that psychiatrists will always be better than general practitioners.
Sure.
That's not what we're saying. We're just saying in the sense of, if you're talking about getting a prescription medication, I think that a psychiatrist would be your best bet. The caveat to this is that there's such a waiting list for psychiatrists, that there is such a in-demand need for them, that there's waiting lists. So this isn't something that is a quick fix, which unfortunately I think we still have this thought process surrounding mental health is like, oh, I'll fix it, oh, I'll get to it, oh, I'll do this, oh, and it's just pushed off until it gets to the point where it's completely unbearable and it's like, I need something now. Well, that's not how the mental health field works typically, of like, oh, we can just give you something and then, in 4 days you'll be okay. It's going to be this progression over time. And it's going to take, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you cannot expect that medication is going to solve everything.
Right,
That's not how it works. If you are not pairing it with psychotherapy, chances are not a lot of things are going to change. I also get a lot of people who are like, I don't know if it's a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So those are two different things.
Yeah.
I will tell you right now that a psychiatrist is not going to sit with you and listen to your problems, quote unquote. They are not there to have an hour-long session with you to talk through everything you're going through. They are there to assess how your medication is working for you. So typically a psychiatrist appointment, you're in and out in like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of clients that get offended by that. And I'm like, but that's not their job, which is why you have to pair it with therapy. Mari and I are LPCs in the state of Wisconsin. So we are licensed professional counselors. Now, in all different states, there are different things, right? So I went to grad school in Chicago. Had I got licensed in Chicago, I would be an LCPC, a licensed clinical professional counselor. Why they have an extra letter in there, I'm not really sure. I don't know.
Very weird.
But I know I wasn't going to live there. So I was like, well, I'll just get licensed where I live. There are also LCSWs, so licensed clinical social workers. It depends on what you go to school for, like what you get your master's in. My understanding of social work, this is not meant to sound judgy by any means, but to me, social work isn't therapy. Like an LCSW is meant to do therapy. Like that's where the clinical side comes in. But to me, when I think of social work, I think of like community work, right? Like case management and things like that. Whereas like if you go to school for something psychology specific or counseling specific, that's where the LPC comes in. There isn't a judgment of like who's better, who knows more, blah, blah, blah. Right. That's not what I'm saying at all, because at the hospital we worked at, us LPCs were more rare. There was a lot of LCSWs, a lot, because a lot of what we did was also case management, which is the part of the job that I did not enjoy, because that's not what I went to school for. Like it's just a lot of phone calls and back and forth stuff. It's needed, but that's not what I wanted to do with my time. We're also referred to as psychotherapists, right? Counselors, therapists, like there's lots of different words to describe what we do. When we were talking before we got on here, I was like, yeah, it's kind of similar to, do I get a therapist or do I get a life coach? We do very different things. There are very similar things that we do, right? Like a lot of what we can do in therapy is coach somebody through a situation, but that's not our entire intent. And so you really need to recognize what it is that you are trying to achieve and work on in your life, and whether or not it takes a licensed mental health professional to get you through those things, or a coach to hold you accountable and teach you what I would say is like life skills or business skills or relationship skills and things like that. Does that make sense? Like, am I wording that?
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what I would think of. I would think of like a life coach as somebody giving like small actionable steps or like statistics, in the sense if you do this type of networking or this type of networking, or like, I would say very surface level tasks, right? Like, what are you struggling with in your day to day, right? We're not going to talk about the patterns and how they formed and kind of what your childhood looked like and how those interpretations play into your everyday life now. We're just looking at like, what are you struggling with right now and how are we going to get over that? That's what I view life
I
coaching
almost
as.
feel like it's kind of like solution focused therapy, right? Like you're trying
Yeah.
to get to a certain goal, right? But it's not like an overall overarching theme that you're trying to process through, because they don't
Yes.
process through things. And I think there are people that still have qualms or insecurities about diagnoses, and they don't want them, and that's okay. However, part of our job is to figure out what's going on, and that
Mhm.
includes a diagnosis, so we can know what we're treating, right, and how to go about working on things with you. I was trying to think if there was anything else that people have questioned, like, well, what do I do